To be extremely wealthy and successful is one thing, but to be truly loved by people at the same time is a privilege only a few would experience in their lives. One of those few lucky people is Ratan Tata, a man who is not only insanely rich and successful, but also is a world-renowned philanthropist. Ratan was born in 1937, in a very wealthy and famous Parsi family. He was heavily influenced by his grandma Nnamdi Tata, who was a philanthropist herself, trying to use her wealth and status to provide shelters and food for the poor. He soon realized how lucky he is to be born among the rich, and yet, he has a responsibility to give, as he received a good hand in life. He finished his studies in architecture at Cornell University, and attended a management course at Harvard Business School. He then returned to India, and worked at ground-level steel shop floor. That was the time he learned how difficult the lives of ordinary people are, and how tough it could be if you were not born with silver spoon in your mouth. He quickly moved up the ladder and became the director of National Radio and Electronic Channel in 1971, and 2 decades later, he succeeded his uncle J.R.D. Tata to become the chairman of giant Tata Group. That was a turning point for the Indian conglomerate, as during Ratan's management, revenues grew 40 times, and profit went up to whopping 50 times of what it was when he took over. He made this happen partly due to his smart vision by globalizing Tata's industries well beyond India's border. Among the list of the international acquisitions he oversaw, the followings can be named: the purchase of London-based Tetley for $43 million in 2000, the acquisition of giant Anglo-Dutch steel manufacturer Chorus Group for $11.3 billion, the purchase of British car brands Jaguar and Land Rover from Ford Motors for $2.3 billion, and the list continues. But some believe, the highlight of his life is his philanthropic efforts, which made him very popular among Indian people. Like his forefathers, he made huge impact in the field of education, rural development, and medicine for the people in need. He did not believe in short-term assistance to the poor, but rather, he tried to minimize the impact of poverty by finding its roots, and eliminating the causes that would leave people in a bad financial shape. He poured millions of dollars to provide scholarship for brightest minds in India, to get education in the best schools of the world. The list of his good deeds goes on and on, to a point that if you ask a common Indian who Ratan Tata is, you immediately see a smile as a sign of satisfaction and gratitude, as he lived among the people, and loved by the people, a privilege he has rightfully earned. As always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and hit the like button if you liked what you watched.
The two most powerful women in the history of India, Queen Lakshmibai, who shaped the mythical culture of heroism among her people, and Indira Gandhi, who promoted economic reform and reignited Indians' national pride. Queen Lakshmibai was born in 1828 into a modest family in the state of Jhansi, a northern state in India. She lost her mother at an early age and was raised by her father. It was her father who taught her to be a strong-minded woman, one who would not be dependent on any man. This was particularly tough in a patriarchal society at the time. Lakshmibai learned shooting, fencing, horsemanship, and many other skills that were traditionally considered to be boys' curriculum. Not only did she learn these skills, but she mastered all of them. She was later married to Maharaja of Jhansi at the age of 14, and after the death of her husband, she became the queen, or Rani. Her reign over the state was affected by the greedy British colonial forces, who tried to expand their territories across India. This was not what the queen had envisioned for her people. To defend her people's independence and freedom, she tried to negotiate with the British, but was met with disappointing response. She then naturally organized the rebellion forces and fought the occupiers with courage and patriotism. Even though her army could not match the powerful weaponry of the British army, she went from town to town to remobilize the rebellion on a horse, with her adopted son holding onto her from the back. In the final battle, as her troops were being slaughtered by the British, she courageously took on the enemy herself and was killed in the battlefield. 90 years after the rebellion she started, India became independent of the British reign. The other most powerful woman of India was also the only female prime minister in the history of the country, Indira Gandhi, who had no relation to Mahatma Gandhi, but through a strange turn of events, picked up the last name Gandhi, which perhaps in some way helped place her onto the political pedestal of her time. Indira was the daughter of the famous Indian politician and patriot, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. She was born in 1917 and she did not have a pleasant childhood. Like Queen Lakshmibai, Indira lost her mother when she was quite young, and her father was absent in her life for most of the time. She suffered many diseases at the young age, which may not have left her with many good childhood memories. However, being a daughter of the Prime Minister did come with a few perks, such as special access to education. She was first homeschooled and then studied in several top schools in India and England, including the University of Mumbai and the University of Oxford. After the World War in the 1950s, she served her father unofficially as his personal assistant, and it was during this time that she learned about politics. After her father's death, she became a member of the Congress and eventually rose to the top and got elected as the first, and to this date, the only female Prime Minister of India. She was the Prime Minister for 3 terms and had become such an influential figure that the famous phrase, "India is Indira and Indira is India," was coined during her leadership. Her legacy includes promoting the economic growth of India and its foreign policy. She also led the war against Pakistan that resulted in India's victory and the independence of a new country, which we now know as Bangladesh. These 2 women not only fought against what their society has defined for their gender, but also changed the current of history for their people and country. Their achievement and influence dwarf those of many iconic male figures in India, and their stories continue to be an inspiration for young women around the world. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button if you like this video.
Thanks to Marvel and DC, nowadays everybody talks about superheroes. But even very young children know superheroes are not real. They're just beefed up versions of humans mixed with our fantasies, originally shown in comic books to entertain kids. This is in 2 minutes, and we would like to tell you there's one superhero who is real, and he did something extraordinary that only superheroes can do. We would like to claim that Superman is real. Surprised? Yes, we're talking about the man everyone knows as Superman, and he's not Clark Kent. His real name was Christopher Reeve. Between 1978 and 1987, he played the Superman role in 4 movies and left us with the most memorable and iconic acting that few actors can pull off for such an important character. He instantly became an international star after the first film and continued with 3 successful sequels that made millions in box office. He was very talented, even at a young age, and gained admiration of acting giants like Audrey Hepburn, as she once famously told Reeve that he would someday be a very big star. This happened well before he started the Superman movie series. Sadly, in 1995, he fell off a horse and badly injured his spine, to a point where he was paralyzed from neck down, and even his normal breathing was affected. He had to spend the rest of his life on a wheelchair, only being able to move his head. Faced with this situation, plunging from the peak of popularity and fame to almost complete physical paralysis, he did something that only a true superhero can do. Instead of further mental self-destruction and despair, he decided to not only lift his own spirit up, but also use his fame to help other paralyzed patients so that they have a fighting chance as well. He spent the rest of his life working with media, humanitarian and governmental organizations to raise money and awareness for patients with spinal cord injuries. A true activist and hero to many he created the Christopher Reeve Foundation to speed up research and finding a cure for patients like himself, and to use grants and financial assistance to improve the quality of life for many other people dealing with such injuries. In real life, that is what a true superhero does. And Christopher Reeve was a Superman on the screen and in the outside world till the end of his life.
Elon Musk is a self-made billionaire and one of the richest people in America. You must have seen his name a lot in headlines, but have you ever wondered how exactly did he manage to make so much money? The short answer is, with a lot of hard work and determination to go against all the odds. Elon Musk was born in 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa. He developed an interest in computers when he was only 10, and taught himself how to program computers. He made his own money for the first time at the age of 12 when he sold the code for a video game he'd created for $500. In 1992, Musk went to the US to study business and physics. After graduation, Musk enrolled in a PhD program in energy physics in the University of Stanford. But as it turns out, the internet boom also happened around the same time. Musk saw an opportunity and immediately dropped university to launch his first startup company named Zip2 with his brother, Kimball Musk. The company developed and marketed an internet city guide for the newspaper publishing industry. The plan was a big success, and Musk's company sold Zip2 for $307 million. Elon Musk earned $22 million out of this transaction, and invested more than half of his earnings to co-found X.com, which would later be renamed to PayPal. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal, and Musk earned a hefty $180 million as a result. In the coming years, he went on and invested this money on building up new companies, such as SpaceX and SolarCity, and also revolutionizing the company Tesla. Things were looking great for Musk, and his companies were headed towards huge success. Until 2008, when he divorced his first wife. The divorce was costly, and Musk had to deal with financial distress and live off of loans he'd borrowed from his friends until 2010, when Tesla debuted back on the stock market. Any other person would have just given up at that point, but not Musk, and from then on, the only thing that awaited him was success. Over 7 years, Musk amassed an $84.8 billion fortune, which made him third richest person in the world, only after Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. Musk, being the owner of an automaking company, also had a lot of interest in exquisite cars, and spent millions on buying collector vehicles. However, he is not a fan of lavish vacations. In fact, he is a workaholic who works 120 hours a week and barely takes any vacation. According to Musk, he doesn't even have a desk at the Tesla factory. He says that he simply moves to wherever his help is needed, and encourages all CEOs to take a head-on approach in leading their companies. Musk also invests a lot of his time and energy on SpaceX. This ambitious company strives to build a reusable space vehicle that can take people on space tourism. Musk also founded the Boring Company, yet another ambitious company that specializes in infrastructure and tunnel construction. In 2019, this company was estimated to be worth $920 million. He has way too much fortune to spend on his companies and personal life, so he makes sizable donations to causes he cares about. He has already gifted $10 million to the Future of Life Institute to regulate artificial intelligence. According to him, he is just a regular guy who loves spending time with his family and friends, playing video games, reading books, and working. Musk started from nothing and pulled himself up to become one of the richest people in America. Despite all the pressure from the oil conglomerates and media, he went on and on and on. He wasn't always successful, but he always carried on and never gave up on his dreams.
Meet the Nigerian hero, who spoke out against British colonialism. His name was Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first president of Nigeria, and well known as the father of Nigerian nationalism. He was born on November 16, 1904. His parents named him Benjamin, He later himself changed it to Nnamdi, but he went by Zik among Nigerian people. He showed early signs of intelligence by being able to speak fluently in the languages of the three major ethnic groups of Nigeria, by the time he finished his primary school. Nnamdi received political science degrees from Lincoln University, and the University of Pennsylvania. He had excellent writing skills, and his articles advocating for the rights of Africans, emphasizing on ending the colonial rules in Africa, caught the attention of many local and foreign intellectuals. He then published his book promoting the Black Republic, which put him at center stage of Nigeria's political arena. Afterwards, he founded the African Continental Bank in 1944, and became directly involved in political movements. In 1946, he was elected as the Council's Secretary General and then became Premier of Nigeria's Eastern region in 1954. His powerful ideas and relatable language helped him become the first president of Nigeria in 1963, after serving his country as Governor General for a few years. One of his notable works was the publication of the West African Pilot, a newspaper whose mission was based on integrating the African identity in sports activities. This was in particular very monumental in empowering nationalism for Nigerian people. Zik passed away at the age of 91 in 1996 after a long disease, and was buried in his native land, Onitsha. He was an African philosopher, a scholar, and an eminent journalist, who was very popular for his liberal political orientation, and for his intellectualism promoting the rights of African against colonialism. As always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and hit the like button if you liked this video.
You might hear in the news about crazy violent events happening around the world, and you might wonder how people could be so brutal to each other in this day and age. With all the progress we have made in the development of human rights, free speech, free practice of religion, and compassion for one another. Imagine how it was 1,000 years ago during Middle Ages, when people hung and burned women simply because they thought they were witches. Or 2 millennia ago, when they brutally crucified Jesus Christ for wanting to help other people. How about 600 years before even Jesus Christ was born? What kind of savagery do you think was commonplace in the ancient world? How would you think victors would treat the defeated commanders and captive soldiers? How about women and children of the captured cities of the enemy? Would they be allowed to follow their own traditions and to practice their own religion? What if we told you there was once a king who not only spared the lives of defeated soldiers and rivals, but also treated civilians of their cities with respect, allowing them to practice their own religion with peace and comfort? There was once a mighty and fair king who was called Cyrus, meaning like the sun. He was born in 600 BC as the Prince of Persia, in a very famous royal family. His great-great-grandfather was Achaemenes, who was also a fair king and the figurehead of the Achaemenid dynasty, ruling in the central south part of present-day Iran. Cyrus learned from his fathers and forefathers that the first rule of governance is to be liked by the people you are leading. He also learned that one's knowledge of the world is limited to what he can see, and if you want to grow and make allies, you need to start by learning from their strengths, and welcome their good ideas to your thinking. This way, you don't have to force people to act the way you want, but rather people choose willingly to be your ally. Applying the same principles, he managed to defeat Persia's biggest rival at the time, who was neighboring northern empire, the Medes. The Median army was larger in size, but many Median military commanders defected the rule of Astyages, the king of Media, and joined Persian army. Cyrus defeated the Medes in 550 BC and captured their capital, Ecbatana. After the battle, Cyrus spared Astyages' life and reassigned his governors to different positions, in a very smooth transition of power from the Medes to Persians. Once the conquest was final, Cyrus unified the Persian Empire into a strong country, which appeared to be a threat to neighboring Lydia and Babylonia. Cyrus launched 2 consecutive military campaigns against these 2 neighbors, and defeated both enemies so that he can expand Persian Empire as far as Balkans in present-day Europe. He did not get the chance to further conquer new territories, but the army he left behind was so strong that his descendants Cambyses, Darius and Xerxes easily defeated the Egyptians and the Greeks, and created the biggest empire the world had ever seen. After the conquest of Babylonia, Cyrus' army peacefully marched in the streets as they were being welcomed by the Babylonians. Cyrus then improved their lives by repatriating the displaced Jewish people, restoring templates and sanctuaries, allowing them to freely practice their religion. He then inscribed the first human right resolution on the now famous Cyrus cylinder, which is kept in British Museum in London. Cyrus's legacy goes well beyond his time and territory in Persia or Iran. He is a symbol of pride for Iranians and messiah to Jewish people as he helped them resettle and rebuild Jerusalem. The Greek knew him as a role model and Babylonians as the liberator. Alexander the Great adored him to a point that he ordered to decorate the interior of his tomb, and John Adams and Thomas Jefferson advised his children and friends to learn from Cyrus' fairness and way of governance. A truly great king, whose legacy impacted generations even 2 millennia after his death.
In 2020, Jeff Bezos, the owner of e-commerce company Amazon, amassed a fortune of $200 billion, surpassing Bill Gates' wealth, and became the richest man in the entire world. His fortune is so much that spending $88,000 for him is equivalent to an average American spending $1. However, Bezos' journey to wealth was not easy, and he didn't become rich overnight. Bezos was born in 1964 in New Mexico and graduated with a degree in computer science and electrical engineering from Princeton University. By 1990, he'd become the senior vice president of an investment firm, and it already seemed like he'd secured himself a successful future. But Bezos wasn't content with that. By 1994, internet was already growing 2,300% annually. Bezos saw an opportunity and made the unorthodox decision to quit his job in the Wall Street to establish Amazon, a website for selling books online. His parents, although a bit skeptical at first, were the first investors in his company. He then founded Amazon with a few $100,000, and nearly 2 decades later, their investment multiplied by 120,000, amounting to $30 billion. When they started, Bezos, his wife, and 2 others were the only employees of Amazon, shipping books out of their garage to all over the US, and a year later, to 45 countries around the world. In 1997, Amazon became a public company, offering shares to investors, and by 2000, Amazon was selling not only books, but a wide variety of items ranging from sports equipment to toiletries. In 2006, Amazon Web Services launched, which would later become the most popular computing platform among thousands of Silicon Valley startups. With the introduction of Kindle digital book reader, more cash flowed into the company, and Amazon started to purchase companies to expand its services. In 2017, Amazon bought the grocery chain Whole Foods, worth $13.6 billion, and PillPack, a startup that delivers personalized packages of medicine to users' home, for $1 billion. All these investments worked magically in Bezos' favor when the coronavirus pandemic crippled the United States economy. While millions of people lost their jobs, a lot more turned towards online shopping, most notably towards Amazon, since it had everything a buyer could need: clothes, groceries, furniture, and more. However, it wasn't just Amazon that contributed to Bezos' fortune. Bezos has made several investments in other companies, such as Stack Overflow and the Washington Post. He is also one of US' biggest real estate investors, and owns several estates and penthouses all across the country, and none of them are worth less than $1 million. While Bezos loves spending his money on real estate, he doesn't seem very interested in cars. He was still driving a Honda Accord in 2013, but maybe that's because he prefers aerial transport to ground transportation, since he owns a private jet worth $65 million. But Bezos hasn't just spent his fortune on himself and his company, he has donated large sums of money to shelters and research centers. Moreover, Amazon Marketplace allows smaller businesses to sell their products to customers all across the world. Bezos' second company, Blue Origin, which was founded in 2000, is his most ambitious venture, and he regards it as the most important work he's doing. This company, similar to Elon Musk's SpaceX, intends to support large-scale space tourism, and has had several successful test flights. Bezos plans to spend a large portion of his fortune on funding and advancing Blue Origin, with the hopes of colonizing space in the future. Jeff Bezos saw an opportunity in something that was so new at the time. While there was also a substantial risk of failure and financial loss, that did not stop him from following his dreams. The road to success was not easy, but he made it. He is a self-made billionaire.